Welcome back to another episode on the Oak and Rock Fatherhood YouTube channel. I am your host, Zachary Small from thefamilyalpha.com and the private men's community fraternity of excellence.com. I am joined by Anthony Migliorino, the permanent co-host and champ of peacefulfathers.com. Anthony, what's going on, brother?
Yes, nothing much, brother. How we doing? Everything is good. Fatherless homes. That's a topic tonight. And important topic, something that needs to be addressed, needs to be spoken about more, and needs to really be understood how important fathers are to the healthy development of children. That's it.
It's wild when you think about it. You know, a lot of our conversations, we dance between these highs and lows, but that's being a father. You know, that's being a man, being able to navigate both sides of that spectrum. And when you talk about fatherless homes, I mean, you hear it everywhere. Women can do anything a man can do. You know, they're able to fill all these roles, but a mother cannot be a father. And when you look at the homes and you look, well, what's the big deal? Do you really need a dad? You know, you've got all these guys online you can go to. You've got all these mentors in the neighborhood. Not having a father, a strong, good example of a father in the home is detrimental on a level that it's very hard to adequately capture. That child is it does a disservice to that kid in every aspect of their life. Every single aspect across the board. When you do not have a supportive father in the picture, it's a negative. It's a negative on health, wealth, relationships, and everything else. And we're going to dive into that. You know, sometimes we're talking about, hey, being a newborn dad, what can you do? Reigniting passion. You can check those videos. But sometimes we got to say, hey, not only what are the fallouts and consequences of not being an involved father, but what can we do about it? So we're going to identify the problem. We're going to go deep in the weeds on the problems these kids are facing, but also what can single moms do? Or what can fathers who are estranged from their kids, what can they do? How can we start to work to correct this? And like Anthony said, you know, it's not the easiest of discussions, but it's absolutely necessary.
It is. And there is so much dysfunction going on in the world. There's so many things that men and women that we have to struggle. There's things we have to struggle with to get through in life and to create a good life. And when I think about that, right, there's one thing that we can do to help children, right? If we really care about kids in this world, the one thing we can do is make sure that we're providing an environment where fathers are in the home. I mean, statistically, it's proven beyond doubt, right? We see it from time and time again, how important it is. What the statistics show, when children are born without fathers, there's so many negative attributes, so many negative outcomes that come from that. And, we live in a day and age where there are 1 in 4 kids who live without a father in their house. And to me, that's insane when you think about it, right? 1 out of every 4 children do not have a dad. They don't have that parental male role model to look up to in life to give them security, stability, and safety. And no wonder there's a lot of dysfunction. There's a lot of kids who are suffering in this day and age. So it's something, I'm not going to say I have the answers on how to fix it, but I think if we can talk about the problem and we can bring a real conversation to the public and talk to other fathers about this, I think you will see things change. Things will get better.
No, I completely agree. And when you think about it, to take it a little bit further, before we dive into these stats and go through, some images we have together to capture what's going on here, I want to make this point very clear. Being a father is more than showing up with, a paycheck, putting clothes in their back and a roof overhead and food on the table. You need to do more. That's the bare minimum. That applied and that worked when you were a caveman. You literally try to keep your family alive. They weren't developed and they didn't live in a society that required what's required now. So we've got to stop looking back at the 1920s, 1950s, 1980s. Like, we can't go back. What we can do is we can go forward. A lot of fathers in modern day who are present and they put the clothes in their back, they put the roof overhead and food on the table, but now they have a phone in their hand permanently and they're just scrolling it. Or they're going out with the guys, or they're doing things that are not involved with the family. And so these children are going to experience some of the things you've seen, even though they have a father in the home. Because what we're talking about here is intentional fathers, the presence of a father who's involved, however you want to word that. A dad who shows up and supports his kid is intentional with his role in their life. So it says fatherless homes, but you can be a father who's in the home that is absent. And that's a tragedy because you're right there. All you have to do is try. And for some, that's too much. So we're also talking to you. If you're a father who's sort of been coasting by, not knowing your role or how to get involved in your kid's life, pay attention, because if you don't step up, your kids are going to fall out. With that, you want to just dive into it, Anthony?
Let's dive in.
Dive it in.
These
All right.
Statistics.
The father absence crisis. So, Anthony, when you gave your speech at CME, it was incredible. The breakdown, the role, the duties, the responsibilities, and the consequences of not being there. And that was sort of the origin of this. Hey, let's bring it together. Let's put these images on it so people can see how this all breaks down and what's going on. So when it starts there, kids in father absent homes are more prone to behavior problems. So this is where you start to see the tantrums. You start to see the kids lashing out. To you, is this acting out in school as well? Or is this just the emotional release within the home only? Or is it all behaviors?
I think it's acting out everywhere. Home, school, society. It's showing up wherever children are, and that's pretty much everywhere. And with the behavioral problems, when you have like you said before, Zac, a stable, a present father, this is the position in a child's life. The father becomes the compass point, right? He becomes the one who guides and directs them to good behavior, to learning how to control his emotions or her emotions. And without that oak and that rock, right? Without that father being in the home, child is definitely going to have a hard time developing self-control, self-regulation. And even if, the absence crisis, but even if the father is there and he's still absent, that child's going to develop the same patterns, right? They're not going to be able to regulate emotion because they're not seeing any examples from a father, even if he is there. So that's why we have to be intentional, right? If you have that opportunity to be in your home with your kids, don't waste it, right? The goal is to expand and to grow and to become a better man, but also become a better father and lead by example, right? Our kids are going to be molded and shaped to how we want them. We have to make sure, if we want to see good behavior, if we want our kids to accept behavior, and what I mean by that is it's okay if they act out. It's okay if they're not exactly how we want them to be, but it doesn't define who they are. And we can move on and we can move past that, right? It doesn't have to continually keep us down and be the same recurring pattern over and over. That's what fathers bring to the home, that stability.
You said the compass. So you totally stole, what I was going for with the symbolism there. So I'm going to go with the buoys. The same sense, when you have a father who's like, all right, this is our true north. This is how we conduct ourselves. The same thing with the buoys. Too far left, too far right. The kid can operate within those windows, but you let them know, like, hey, you're being too hard. Hey, you're being too soft. And you guide them. You show them through your example what it is to live a life well lived. We say that fathers and mothers, they fall into these little boxes. Like, mom's going to be there to kiss your boo-boo better, but dad's going to be there to get you to jump off the roof. Mom's going to be there to take care of you and cook those meals, but dad's going to go out with you and do all that hard work in the yard. Well, if you strip that half of it and mom's trying to do all that, there's no way she can give everything that child needs. And when that kid is feeling something, especially sons, now a father plays a huge role in his daughter's life. It's just as important as a son. But when you're a young boy, you are feeling differently than your sister or your mother. They don't have the levels of testosterone that are flowing through your body. They don't have the wiring that you have inside your head. A father does, a man does. And if you don't have anyone that can teach you how to regulate that, well, you don't even know. You just, I feel this, I'm acting on it. My mom's not around because she's working double duty to take care of us. So I'm kind of raising myself here. Or my mom is just mean and she's all stressed out and freaking out and has her own issues to deal with. So it's just me and my dad's not around. Either out of the picture, divorced, separated, whatever the case is, he's not there. And that leaves the child to fend for themselves and to figure out what is it to be a man. Why do you think in the ghettos of ghettos and in the worst of places where the fathers aren't around, you see the worst crime? You see the most rambunctious kids. To go back, I can't think of the name of it. Dad's on duty. The fathers who had to show up to that school because those kids kept getting into fights and having huge brawls. Dads showed up, and like that, everybody straightened themselves out because men are strong. We are the strongest animals in this kingdom. Men are the strongest humans. Physiologically, we're built for this. So when the men show up, it's like the lion showing up. The teens that are running around, for some, they're like little lions growing, but they're like the hyenas. They're just high tempo. They're operating around. They're lashing out because they've got all these hormones going through them, and they don't have any way to regulate it. And somebody has to roll in and just set it straight. It's got to be those buoys. Those are dads that you're calling on. If they're not there, it's no wonder behaviors are out of control, which leads to the next one where these kids are going to face abuse and neglect. Nobody's there to guide them. Nobody's there to protect them. Nobody's there to teach them how to protect themselves, which is equally as important of a lesson as anything else, because we're the shield and the spear. So as fathers, you teach to attack, but you also teach to defend. And if you're not there, that's not being taught.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about what the role is of the father, what we're supposed to be doing, how we're supposed to be interacting with our kids, we bring up peaceful parenting a lot, and we talk about raising, as a man of good character, you'll raise children of good character. So if you're in your home and you're abusing your kid, obviously, right, violence begets violence. Your kid is gonna either be a violent person, or he's going to allow violence in his life. But just think about if you come from a home without a father and you never had that security of a good father being in your presence, and you have to go out into the world, and there's going to be people who maybe are raised by abusive fathers or didn't have fathers on their own, of their own. What is that going to look like in the world, right? How are we going to see people handle disputes? How are we going to see people have healthy attachments to other good people? The evidence shows that we're not going to see that often. We're going to see a real breakdown of society, a real breakdown of what children think relationships should be, right? What they should look like. I mean, this is why you get women who, the battered wives who allow their husbands to beat them, right? Violence is normalized. The abuse is normalized. The neglect is normalized. You create relationships and bonds with people that really don't care about you. Sometimes it's because they're bad people, but most of the time they lack that understanding of what it means to be connected to another human being. So they're just as wounded as you are, right? So now you have all these people who are suffering from these inner wounds, these childhood wounds, simply because they didn't have a father in the home. And it's showing up in tremendous ways. I think it's good, though, that we are addressing it. You see more posts about it. You see more people talking about it, and it's coming to light, right? It's a topic that it's not so sacred anymore, right? We can talk about it. We could say, hey, fathers are important. Look at the stats. Look what's going on. You mentioned the violence and the crime and everything going on in ghettos. Right now, there's almost 65% of the homes in the Black community are fatherless. That's a huge number, man. That's insanity.
That's insane. When you hear it, doesn't even make sense. It's almost the norm is to be like, hey, you don't have a dad either. That is wild.
No, it's crazy. It's crazy that almost 65%. I mean, it's still high across the board, right? It's over 40% for Hispanic or Latinos, and almost 25% for whites. So it's definitely something that has been rising in the last few decades, right? It's something that's becoming a bigger problem. There's a lot of things behind it. There's a lot of reasons why it's happening. I would say, but besides all the government issues and people trying to control and break down the family, I think the main reason it's happening is because fathers don't believe how important they are, right? They're raised in homes with single mothers. They're told that if they're a male, they're bad, right? They have ADHD, they're aggressive, they don't fit into the family system. So we're conditioning our boys to believe this nonsense. And what we've done is create generations of men who aren't confident, who don't believe that fathers are important, right? I don't care what the rest of the world says. I want my son to fully embrace that he's going to be a father one day, and that's going to be the greatest job of his life. I don't care if there's feminists with pitchforks and torches on his front yard, right? I want him to deeply feel that and believe it. Same way I want my daughters to believe that they need to bring a good man into their life to be a father to their children, and how important that is. It's often overlooked, and it's often treated as something that can just be easily dismissed. But I think you break a big part of this problem, or you solve a big part of this problem by having men realize how important they are.
I mean, well, you have to. If you don't understand the point of the task, you're not going to do it. You're like, oh, I'll just dismiss this. It's not important. Well, if you know, hey, I need to do this because that's going to bring me great success and wealth and relationships later on in life. All right, I've got to do this, and then you will, because you understand why you're doing it. Some dads had a kid, they forgot, hey, you've got a duty to that kid. And when we're looking at abuse and neglect, let's think about the next order of events here. How many stories have we heard where the mom had a rotation of guys coming in because she's trying to find either someone to take care of her and the kids, she's trying to find someone that she can balance the duties with, or she's just trying to find love and connection because the last one didn't work. Well, some of those men come in, they're coming from their broken fatherless home. They're coming in and they're hurt, and they take it out on the single mom's kids. They're there for the date. They're not there to be dad. And who falls out when the mom is trying to balance that? She gets pulled out of the home, and now the kids are alone, or the dude comes into their family. He's not bringing the best positive energy, and now he's taking it out on the kids. That's the first order. The second order, how are those kids supposed to grow up in healthy relationships or have healthy relationships with others? All they know is a dude showing up that's angry and mean, or a mom who views them as a burden on her life. They don't know how to maintain a healthy relationship there. If these fathers are absent, and when I say fathers being absent, if you're the biological father and you're out of the picture, and you're a stepfather and you're in the picture, that stepfather isn't a present father. I'm not saying literal biology here. Step parents, good on you. Show up, take care of the kids if that's what you're doing. I was adopted. My dad saved my life. Literally, he saved me from a psychopath. And guess what? It worked out for me. So when I say show up and be a present father, this is even if it's not your kid and you've chosen to adopt them or fill that role in that relationship. And this is on a different category. When you talk about dating single mothers, I think single fathers are the best match for single mothers because they understand that balance, that the kid does come first. If you have a single man coming into it, he's like, hey, I want you to be my lady. I'm not here for the kid. And if you're saying, well, you're not going to go on a date with me because of the kid, well, I don't want to date you. And then the woman's like, well, no, don't worry about that. Hey, kids, you stay home. Just be quiet. Don't answer the door. I'm going to go out. And now, bam, that's when the neglect shows up and is normalized. I've got to be nice to this guy or tolerate this guy because mom wants him in her life. I've got to do this for mom. And now these kids don't know how to make themselves a priority. They don't know how to speak up. And that's going to turn them to the next thing, the drugs and the booze. How can I numb this pain? How can I make this go away? Or how can I just chase the high? I see all these other kids doing so well and they're so cool. And I come from this little shithole of a home where I'm sad all the time. I want to get out and hang out with them and be cool. I want to go out in the streets and see those guys. Or we've spoken about this many times. There are people who prey on these kids. Hey, kid, you feeling bad? Oh, I see that you're having a hard time at home. Try these pills. Let's smoke this weed. Hey, I'll buy you booze. Hey, let's go hang out at my house. And all of a sudden, we're like, well, how did your daughter find herself in that position? How did your son find himself with a needle in his arm? It all started because he didn't have a home to go to. So he found himself in somebody else's home. And in that home, they're in charge of what happens to him or her. And in that home, you have lost your child because now somebody else has filled the role of mom or dad because you didn't want to be there. You were absent. And somebody else said, hey, I have needs I need met. I'm going to prey on your children because I know they're vulnerable and they're open and they have no defense. And guess what? I'm not scared of dad showing up because dad's not in the damn picture and mom's too busy over here. So your kid is literally left in the Sahara to fend for themselves.
My back.
Man, dude, you think about these kids and what they're going through. Like you're looking at this, and this, I knew it. I knew in this conversation. I knew when we said we were going to have this talk. I knew it. Like, I was like, I'm going to get fucking like worked up, dude. Like, I'm going to start to like feel that like that frustration that comes with this being such an avoidable thing. There are a lot of fathers who are kept out of the home because their ex-wife is like, no, they're doing whatever they can to split them. And to those men, while you're an absent father in the literal sense, as long as you're doing your absolute best when you have the kid, I'm not putting you into this category. If you're doing your absolute best and you're withheld because of family law, all you can do is keep showing up and keep being your best. But if we're talking absent fathers who are absent by choice, I have literally zero understanding or patience or tolerance for what the fuck you're pulling on those kids. It's unacceptable. And we've only hit the third point, and there's many more to come. But behavior issues, abuse and neglect, and drugs and alcohol, dude, we've just started on what's going to happen to these kids.
It's a vicious cycle. It really is. The pain that these kids are trying to mask from abuse of drugs and alcohol, it's real to them, right? It shows up because, and I don't want to say just because the father isn't there, but in essence, that's really why. And I remember when my kids were growing up, when they were younger, teenagers, there was a focus around going to the homes where their dads were not there, where the mothers were divorced, the fathers weren't there, they were absent, and everybody wanted to go to that home. And not, I wouldn't say it's because there was free range and they can do whatever they want, but they didn't have that male figure, just like with the dads on duty, right? When that dominance isn't there, or that dominant figure of a man who can protect, right? It's not always about putting down the iron fist. It's about bringing that safety, that comfort, and the stability that men bring to any element. Well, I should say a good man, right? A father who's doing the work to become better. And when you have all these children who they don't have a father, right? We see that kids are more prone to abuse drugs and alcohol when the dad's not there. All this is doing is creating more pain, and you're not going to solve it, right? It's not going to be solved if we don't recognize that a father in the home could possibly alleviate or help cure addiction. And when I say it like that, it's amazing, because having a dad who loves you, having a dad who's going to be respectful, who's going to be close and connected, think about how powerful that is. That can literally stop kids from abusing drugs. And we see in society, you have fentanyl, you have opiates, right? Heroin. These kids are numbing and masking the pain that they have from within. And a simple cure, a simple fix is, let's bring dads back in the home. Let's have kids sit down with dad at dinner. Let's have, let's have dads start improving their life and becoming better, and not having to fail or fall to all the pressures of the world. And let's have those conversations about how important families are, how important a family sitting down and having a family dinner is, so you can actually interact and engage and have conversations with your kids, share your dreams with them, talk about how good life is going to be and what you're going to do. And you know what? Sometimes you can have those talks about where you failed and where you messed up and what you need to improve on. But if children don't have that, they're not going to have healthy development. There's always going to be something missing. And unfortunately, that void is filled with substance. An addiction just isn't alcohol and drugs. It could be obviously the phone, social media, gaming, porn, whatever you want to throw at it. Sex addiction. It could be addicted to status, like a narcissist, right? You need a supply of acceptance and reassurance from everybody else because you have low self-esteem. So these are all the addictions that show up in childhood, simply because a father is not there.
When you look at it too, I'm glad you brought up like the sex addiction and things outside of the drugs, because a lot of these people, they tried to find the father that wasn't there in these other men, and they just tolerate anything. I don't remember what it was. I think it was Teen Mom, but I remember seeing like this little clip that was floating around Twitter, and she's like, yeah, it was like this juxtaposition between these two. One was saying, I hate all men because my father left us. And the other one was like, I'm addicted to sex to show my dad how I don't even care that he didn't show up. We didn't need him. And these two girls had a very different approach to it, but both of them were just so angry at their father for not being there that it doesn't matter the path they took. It was a destructive one. One couldn't have relationships, and the other one was just having all these physical relationships, but unable to touch intimately. And that was the addiction. It's like trying to fill that void, with somebody to be there to just say, I love you. And it doesn't matter if they hit you, burn cigarettes on you, as long as they say they love you because dad didn't, you'll tolerate them. Nobody wants that for their kids. Nobody wants that for their sons or daughters. I mean, if you look at these last two, I'm going to put them together with committing crimes and going to prison. How many lives have been destroyed because these kids didn't have a chance? You can say they chose to break in, they chose to do this, but when you really look at it and you look at these kids, like I'm thinking about all the kids I've coached through youth sports. There are kids who, when they're coming from a position where the father is not around and they're free to just roam and they're frustrated and they're disappointed and they have that little moment where they're by themselves, they're like, just nobody loves me. They will go out and they will find trouble to feel something, to do something, to be a part of something, because everything looks better than what they have. And there's that whole 8 Mile line. He doesn't want to live in the trailer park, so he's got to go out and do his thing. Well, some people find outlets like that, but those are the exceptions. So when you see the story of, I didn't have a dad, I turned out fine. You're the exception to the rule. You're not the rule. The rule is that the masses who are addicted to drugs and in prison go to a prison and start asking, hey, whose dads weren't around or whose dads were abusive? Just start asking. I guarantee these stats would be quite high for fathers not being around or for poor role models of fathers being around. And that's what drove these kids. So when I say they didn't have a chance, we have willpower. We have free will, but these kids were coming from an environment where they didn't even care. If you had taken them and dropped them in an environment where dad was around, hey, I love you, kid. Let's go. I'll support your sports. I'll support your school. I love what you and your mom are doing. We're going to figure this out. They're not going to turn to let's break into these cars. Let's break into these homes. Let's go and do these things. I did a lot of stupid shit as a teen, but I knew that there was a line there. I knew like, hey, playing with fire, whatever, going out and burning down somebody's car, that's a little different. Yeah. We had paintball guns, we had all these things, but never would I think, hey, I should shoot these people on the side of the road that are innocent. It was always like, hey, let's go out in the woods and like shoot some signs or whatever. But like that little difference, my father made it very clear. It's okay to do these things, but you don't do the wrong thing. Like we're men. We have a standard we've got to live up to. Because I had a dad who kind of showed me where that line was, I knew which one to fall on. I knew how to get in trouble, but not do really bad things that would have me end up in prison. And for the kids, for the sons, the daughters, they're probably not watching this. Honestly, there were probably a few parents who are sitting here thinking like, all right, yeah, I didn't have a dad. Fuck you guys. It's probably a lot of fathers, maybe a few mothers, but it's probably a lot of fathers right now who are like, shit, I have been absent. I've been so focused on work. I've not been showing up in my kid's life. Or I'm divorced and Zac and Anthony, you guys aren't talking about family law. Women are holding us down. I tried covering my ass with that, but I'll say it again. If you're suffering from not being able to see your kids because of divorce, then you suck it the fuck up and you do the absolute best you can do when you can see them. And if your kid ends up with any of these things, it will not sit on your soul because you did your best. But if you only have them for a weekend and your whole job there, the whole intent that you have there is to show up the mom, I'll show her how good of a dad I am. I'm going to buy them all these gifts. Dude, your kids need connection. They need your presence. This is about absent fathers, men who are not there. This isn't just physically. If you are not there on the personal level and connecting, you're an absent father. And you need to show up or you're going to find yourself in one of your kids being one of these statistics. Raise them right. Put the reps in, get involved, have the talks. We've recorded videos on having the talk. We recorded videos on the tone that you need to have, on why you should show up, how to have the benefits to this. We're spoon feeding the answers, but you've got to go and apply them. I don't want your fucking kids to end up in prison, but this is what's happening. This is real. This is not made up infographics. These stats are real. 65% in Black communities do not have fathers in the home. That's fucking insane. That is a broken system, and there's no way to argue around it. It's a problem that we need to fix. Let's go to some more fun stats here.
Yeah, man. I want to make the distinction between, it is the father absence crisis. And like you keep saying, Zac, there's men who are literally not there. And then there's men who are in the home who they might be neglecting, right? They might not even be present. They're not engaged with their kids. But there's also another side of that will definitely alter your child's behavior. It'll increase criminality, right? That's a father who is overly abusive, right? Is too strict or too rigid. And to me, that's being absent as well, right? That is not being a father who is connected, a father who's present and really, being present means to be focusing continually on what you're doing and improving as a man, becoming a better father. if you're not doing that, right, it's like the saying, if you're not growing, you're dying. It's the same thing in fatherhood, right? We always have to be striving to get better. We always have to be looking in. We always need to be looking forward and saying, what can we do to become a better dad? How can I help my children in these moments? When we resort to neglect, which is when we pull away and we isolate our kids and we don't give them love, we withhold love, it damages them. Same way that if we would to physically strike them or to threaten them and constantly keep them under pressure, right? It damages them. So there's so many different layers to this where, you can have dads in the home who are abusive, dads in the home who are neglecting their kids. And then you can have just those men that run from their responsibility and aren't there at all. And again, as we're going to show you with the stats, right? I don't think there's any studies or anybody saying that if you don't have a father in the home, your life will be better. There might be people who will try to pump that nonsense into the new woke mind, right? What's going on with all this politically correct crap. But it just can't be proven. There's no evidence for it. It can't be shown. And this slide right here, I mentioned it before. 1 in 4 children, fatherless homes. So if you think about that, 1 in 4, it's 25%. That's kind of the norm. If you go into the Hispanic and Latino community, it's a little bit higher. Like I said, over 42%, 43%. And then the Black community is over 65% or almost 65. So it's almost, it's more than double. And it's insane. Like you said before, it's crazy. It really is. What is going on, right? What is going on in these communities? What is going on in this country that it's becoming socially acceptable? That it's something that nobody's talking about, or they're not talking about it enough. And we kind of just accepted it. We kind of just say, yeah, kids don't need dads. I don't understand. Maybe you can enlighten me on it a little bit.
No, dude, as you're saying it, I'm sitting here looking at this. I'm like, man, this is so frustrating. I wish we could bottle this up and send it to everywhere. Like have this just drop hey, you're having a kid, you need to watch this video. Show up, man. Like you need to be there. Your presence matters. 25% of kids. We look at what's happening in our nation and we say, oh, it's because this generation's weak and they're entitled and they want all these things from the government. Man, 25% of these kids didn't have a dad to teach them how to even live with any sense of sovereignty, any sense of free, individual revolutionary spirit of wanting to go forward and own their life. And the other 75%, while I would like to think that dad was there and dad showed up and dad is doing his best, he's probably just there and a walking paycheck. And this is just going off of the interactions I've had with men. So that 25% is literally tracked no dad in the home. If you factor in abusive dads and you factor in absent dads kids see daily, that number probably closer to 50%, if not more.
How are these kids even surviving?
Dude, I was just going to say, and when you look at what's going on, in the Hispanic and Black communities, I don't know why. I've never understood because I don't think it's a cultural thing. But at the same time, I don't know the answer. I don't know. And we do have a few guests lined up that I look forward to picking their brains to see what they think, because I don't care where you fall on the spectrum of skin color or religion or creed or whatever. A father in the home is absolutely necessary. And I don't see how in any manner that could be distorted to anybody believing otherwise. As you were saying, I could see some of the crazy feminists slamming the keyboard. Men aren't needed. Women can do whatever men can do. False. But I could see them saying it. It's not true, but anybody can say what they want. But when you look at it from the big picture, 50,000 miles in the air, looking down on it, dads are fucking needed in every community, in every culture. That's what we do. That's how we made it this far. And modern comfort is what's kind of driving this. We don't need men until a hurricane hits. Well, we don't need men until riots hit. Well, guess what? Riots have calmed down. I know the whole Rittenhouse thing happened. They're probably going to blow Kenosha up today. But for the most part, the riots, the lockdowns, these things have passed. And now we're going back. We don't need men. How quick did that change when shit was hitting the fan? We need men. Load them up. Bring them in. I want all the strong muscles. Why are we only there when shit's hitting the fan? Why are you not understanding a father's needed in times of peace so you're ready for war? If dad's not there now, teaching these kids to stand on their own ground, that's why we have kids who are saying, I need to get vaccinated. I need to wear this mask. I have to do this because nobody taught them otherwise. They went outside the buoys because nobody set them up for them. So 1 in 4 children, I think that's false. I think that's only covering a part of the story. I think we're closer to 50% there. And if that's 18 million with at this statistic, then we're looking at 36 million plus. If we double the number, 36 million children.
Yeah, kids
really
are
let that
fucked
shit
up.
sink in. Like,
Kids are
just
fucked up
really,
these days.
and we got to turn it around, man. We have. That's
Yeah.
why we do this. We could be doing anything we want. This is what we're focusing on because the conversation sucks, but it's necessary. And the only way to address it is to fucking address it.
Yeah, I mean, look at some of these statistics, right? And we can focus on one or a few, but we already have an obesity problem in this country. Now, if you don't have a father in the home, that doubles, right? You're 2 times as more likely to become obese as a child, and that that breaks my heart, man. That saddens me to see these, when I see young children walking around and they're overweight, they're obese, they're not healthy. And to think that that can be helped if if they had a father in their home. And if you think about that, what is a father going to bring to fix that problem? Right? Why are children getting obese if a father's not there? And again, we're going back to being a good man, being a good father. If you're a man who's taking care of yourself, if you're setting that example, obviously you're going to be one of the greatest influences on your kids. So you're going to literally show them what it means to be healthy, how to eat healthy, how to take care of yourself, how to take care of your body, your hygiene, everything. And to be a child and not have that experience, it's going to hurt. It's going to damage a kid's whole life, really. And obesity could be related to just that increase in the addiction, also the pain, right? Eating your feelings. So there's a lot of things that are going to alter the child's well-being. And again, we're going to keep going back to a father in the home. It's needed. It's necessary. It's important. It needs to be said more. And I'm going to let you touch on the next one. But I think poverty 4 times greater.
Well, think about it, dude. Think about where these people are coming from. So we go back to the ghettos. That's a very easy one. For some reason, in that demographic, fatherlessness is running rampant. But also, when you look at the fractured relationships, it's no wonder that they can't maintain a relationship with their money. Because again, the way I see it, these kids are falling into the same trap as the obesity. I can buy my feelings. I can buy my way out of this. I can put my money towards the signs of status that I'm okay, even though you're breaking on the inside because you had no dad and that left you with a serious void and scar in your soul. But you're like, no, I don't need my dad. I'm going to show him. I got the cars, I got the chains, I got the money, I've got this, I've got that. I pay for my friends because I'm going to do what my dad didn't do. Hey, dude, you got some bill collectors knocking at your fucking door. What's up? Oh shit. These kids, if you're not coming from poverty, you're going to send yourself to poverty. And I think that's why we see a lot of these kids who come out. I mean, we saw recently with, I think the guy's name is Riggs or something, but these football players, when they come out of these tough situations, the sport is what breaks them out of it. Maybe they didn't have a dad, but they were really good at their sport and they dedicated themselves to it. And they're like, this is my ticket out of the hood. And then they make it to that level and they get the money, they get these things and they just blow it up because nobody ever taught them how to go about it. You look at somebody like, I'm trying to think of a good fucking example. There are several players who are talking like, all right, I'm going to start bringing this in crypto, or I'm not going to spend any of my money. I'm only going to spend, I think Gronkowski, he never spent his salary. He only spent endorsement money. So his salary just kept year after year. He just kept stacking it, maybe invested, whatever. But some of these guys, he comes from a strong family. Brady, strong family. Several of these players are coming from strong families and they're doing very well. And you see these guys who are, a lot of them are the rookies. They're finding their way in. And if they can't get a mentor on them, they just blow up the gift that was given to them. There's literally a dude I heard of in the local area who won $40-something thousand and it was gone in a month. Nothing to show for it. Nothing to show for it at all. It was gone just like that. I see this in that same light. They don't know how to have a relationship with anything. So if you're not addicted to sex, You're addicted to spending and pretending everything's all right. Just write it off, swipe, swipe, swipe. You're addicted to eating. You're just trying to fill something. And that something is the presence of a father. He left a void when he wasn't there, and you didn't find a way to heal from it.
No, and that's an excellent point, because when you think about poverty, right, you think of just somebody who has nothing, somebody who's living in a cardboard box, or, in the projects, and they have no money, they have no wealth, they're a victim, they're stuck in their circumstance. But what you brought up was good, because it shows that fathers are needed, or the father's not going to just cure the poverty, but the reason why he's there, it's to teach the kids about finances. It's to teach them about money. It's to teach them to be responsible. It's to teach them not to seek status by buying things you don't need to impress people you don't like, right? This is what we see all the time. We see this everywhere. So that's a really good point, right? It's not just you're poor and live under the bridge. It's that you're keeping yourself poor because you haven't developed good habits that a father, and I would say only a father, can probably teach you about finances and money, right? About providing, about taking care of your family, making sure there's food on the table, making sure you can, go and afford groceries, or you can go to the doctor's office, you can get braces. There's all these things that fathers provide. And again, I can't imagine being a child and not having that available to them, right? This is something that they're missing, and their life is just that much more of a struggle. 2 times more obese, 4 times more likely to be in poverty. Could be easily, not easily, but could be fixed by having a father in the home.
Well, think about it, dude. We live in a world right now where if you want the stats to say what you want them to say, you can make it happen. Look at COVID. Look at the way they run the numbers. They make it work for it to go in their favor. We live in a very female accepting and promoting society. Everything is about females can do it too. Let's make sure we support them. We were recently talking about how there's support systems everywhere, for women going through domestic abuse, and there's like one for men. And there's a lot of situations where you see a lot falling in the favor in the side of women. Family law being one of them. Not always, but often they err on the side of the mother. That's a different podcast to be had altogether. But this point isn't. And the point is, if society is supporting it to that level, and it's going to the level that we are at with COVID, with full blown in your face, we're going to support the women over the men, they still cannot get rid of these statistics. Only a father can fix this, because they would have found a way to fudge the numbers and make it great. Kids do so much better when dads are not in the home. They can't do it. They cannot. No matter how they want to spin the numbers, this is what we get when we talk about a father not being around. So when you say only a father can do it, only a father can fix this. That's it.
Yeah, man. That is it. Only could be done by dad, having a good father in your home. I just want to touch on the one thing that stood out to me as you were talking, Zac, the infant mortality rate. Now, it's insane. You're literally being a present father. You're saving lives. Your child is 2 times more likely to die as an infant if they don't have a father. So by being a father, being present, being in the home, you're literally saving a child's life. It improves. They won't die. Think about that, man. To me, that's crazy. You just can't emphasize enough about what's going on and why there's not more attention. And like you said, right, this is about fathers. This isn't about mothers. It's about how important fathers are, why fathers are needed. We want our kids to graduate high school. If that's a goal of yours, I think it should be. I'm not going to go on a anti-school rant. No, but I think there's enough evidence to show, right, success of a child, of an adolescent. They have to get a high school degree, get a job, and I think not have a child before they marry, and that will improve their success rate greatly, right? Their success in life. Throw in having a good father, a father who cares about them, and a father who's going to to fight and protect them, what's stopping these kids, right? Imagine those kids. Imagine what society would look like if we had those kids. Like if everybody's kid was raised by a good dad who wasn't abusive, who wasn't neglecting them, who was actually present, who was talking to other fathers about becoming better. Do you think that we would hear, kids these days?
Dude.
Do you think we would see the chaos and the pain and the defiance of all these kids that's going on? I think, it would be like the world would be like an episode of Leave It to Beaver. It would be pretty cool.
Well, dude, when you think about it too, it goes for like, it's easy to take the joke because that's the easiest, that's like the lowest hanging fruit. Like, yeah, that is funny. Leave It to Beaver. Let's do that. Let's dial it back though. Imagine we did this. Imagine the past 20 years they were focused on like, no, let's do this right. Let's make fathers a priority. Let's do this thing. What type of leaders would be sitting in all these seats in Congress, all these politicians? Imagine
Joe Biden.
Dude, I'm about to, if I had the button right now, you'd be muted and for the rest of this conversation. Hey, speaking of Biden, the dude's son's smoking crack and he's like sleeping with the enemy and shit. So not a good dad. He is not on my list of best dads. And I'm going to end this one now before I go to fucking rent. Well, look, we understand teen pregnancy, so we're not going to dive too deep into that. Listen, the way this works is fathers have to step up. Fathers have to get involved. If you want the world to be better, where I was going with that whole politician thing, if you are raising your kids to be better and everybody's working to raise their kids to be better, eventually those kids become adults. Those adults are going to raise their kids to do well, but they're also going to be a higher beacon, a brighter light for what the roles they fall into, be it teaching, be it, politics, even in the faith, like churches will be better. Everything will be better if you have stronger kids who grow up to be stronger adults. But if you bring these kids who are hurt, they're becoming adults who go back to hurting more kids and hurting each other. And that's where we're living now. And so something I wanted to spin this to would be, well, what's the next step? Like, what do we do about this? One thing that Anthony and I, we like to roll with is, like, here are the problems. Let's work on a solution. So let's not just keep talking about these problems. Let's now focus on the solution. So when I say dad and all these things going on, I really want to stress the point, make it very clear. I'm also talking about the uncles who are stepping in, the brothers, the sibling, these people who can step in and fill that role. We're talking about fathers, but the solution, it might not be, hey, let me go find you a new daddy, kid. It's, hey, mom's working, I'm not dating, but I need a positive role model in your life. There are several ways to go about that. And if you're a man, there are several ways for you to step up. So we'll dive into that now and break it down. But if you're in a situation where you're still trying to figure out, like, all right, I'm separated from my kids, or I see this lady and I see what she's doing with her kids, what can I do? Drop a comment. And if you don't want it to be public, go to the DMs. Anthony at Peaceful Fathers or me at Zac _. You can drop us a line and we'll address it either with you, or if you want it to come on the channel, we can break it publicly and then talk about it for other fathers wondering the same thing. But Anthony, when you have the single mom or you have the kid who didn't have a parent coming up to you, where do you start with that conversation on how the mom can find role models for their child and how the child who's becoming an adult, like, hey, I want to be a good dad, but didn't have a dad, how they start looking for models to emulate?
I think the first step would be to not be a victim, right? Not be a victim of your circumstance, no matter what. I don't care what the situation is, right? We all go through hard times. There's always going to be difficulties in life, and nobody knows what each of us go through. So I think if you're in that position, if you're a single mom, or if you're a child growing up without a father, right, there's always an opportunity to improve your life. There's never an instant where we have to say, I'm not going to make it. This isn't going to happen. This is my life. And, it's something that I try to teach my kids and I try to instill in them. And, there's people who go through life and they accept it, right? They just say, hey, this is how life is. This is how it's going to be. And then there's other people, right? And this is what I try to teach my kids, that life is there for the taking. It's full of endless possibilities. There's always something that you can go after and you can get, and you can create your world. Just because you don't have a father or you're raised in a broken home doesn't mean you still, doesn't mean you can't go down that path. It will be harder. And to answer your question, a single mom, a child growing up without a father, I would say first and foremost, you have to be a good person. You have to have good values. You have to have high standards in your life. And that is going to attract good people into your life. And again, it doesn't matter where you came from. Just because you grew up in a broken home doesn't give you the right to be an asshole or to hurt other people. I think we need to acknowledge that. And I also think that that's why fatherhood's important, right? That's something that fathers are going to bring into a relationship or into the home, right? That stability, that security, that safety, but also that moral code, that moral conduct that, that I actually say this a lot, right? We need to call out other fathers who aren't stepping up and who aren't living how they should. We know what's right and wrong, right? We need to hold men accountable. So if I'm around other men and let's say they're a single dad or they're looking to get involved, I'm going to hold him to high standard. I'm going to say, hey, listen, dude, there are women. I don't care if they have kids, if they're single. There are good women out there, and you have to raise your standards. You have to find good women, and that's something that how we have to live our life. And I'm getting a little bit lost in my thoughts, so just bear with me.
No, it's good, man. It's absolutely true. And as you're flowing it together, people need to understand there's no template that you can't say do A, B, and C. Like people are too individual for that. Their situation is too specific. You can take 3 kids from 3 fatherless homes, and they're going to be 3 different individuals needing 3 different fixes. 3 different things are needed in their life, and they all come from the same issue. But like we saw in the statistics, one was eating their feelings, one is breaking into cars, and the other one's having sex with everybody they saw. And each of them, it's a different path they need to heal. To your point, to sort of compliment, the one on not being a victim, you have to own it and be okay with it being a part of your story. And I think that goes well with you're not a victim, but I'm going to take the different angle. Just take it and take pride in it. I'm not proud I lost my mom early, but I didn't hide from that either. It's just a part of the story. So when we talk about it, or when I speak with Jackie or if I'm talking to whomever, if I were in the market and I was like, all right, I'm looking for a relationship, and like, oh, what was your mom like? I wouldn't be like, oh, well, she wasn't there, and I'm like, no, like my mom, she was out of the picture really early. So what I'm looking for, and then you just have that conversation. Here's what I think I want the mother of my children to be. I didn't see that, but I've seen a lot of examples along the way, be it in movies and books, in other people's parents. And so you can still, without having a mother, know what you want for or what you want in a wife and the mother of your kids. Why not give yourself the same credit and the same permission to do that without a father? You didn't have a dad, but you know what? I found my way around, and there are a lot of characters in books and characters in movies and these things that I saw. Hey, that's the type of man I want to be. Somebody who's honorable, courageous, strong. You're like you sort of build the dad you want to be. And then for those single moms, I had a few single moms who their kids' interaction with role models were the friends of the parents, but also sports. So as their coach, dude, you're probably not going to find a coach like me in your neighborhood. But if you do, latch on to him because that dude's going to give the kids everything he has. And those kids who didn't have dads, there were a few times where they're like, oh, dude, one time I had a kid say, hey, will you be my dad? And I was like, whoa, damn it. Like that hit me. And this was like early on. So 5 or 6 years old, a kid asked me to be his dad because he didn't have one. Dude, I knelt down. I hugged that kid so tight. I was like, no, dude, we're going to get through it. I was like, I'm your coach. We're going to crush it. But in that little window, my soul and his were connected. I was like, dude, we're going to be okay, man. I got your back. And I took care of that kid every year. I looked out for him. I made sure he was good to go. It was really cool. Won him some championships. And he's a great baseball player now. But the point is, if you're a single mom, you don't have any male siblings that are positive, you don't have any men in your life that are good examples for your kids, then find a new network. Go outside your comfort zone and find a place for that kid. If your kid's starting to fight kids at school, hey, bud, I saw this guy. He's a great fighter. He runs martial arts over here. Go to him and start channeling it. Not, oh, I'm going to beat you, kid. I'm going to beat the violence out of you. No, we need to find an outlet for this. I have your back. I love you. I support you. Let me help you. And then do what you can to engage with your kid. But you cannot be the father. There's no asterisks around that. You can be a great mother doing the role of mom and dad, but you're not the father, and you will never be the father. And that for some, that's like using the N word. You know, like that's like, I'm trying to think of like the one thing like the R word, like these words that you're no longer allowed to say. Like when you tell you cannot be a dad, or you say a woman cannot be anything, they're like, what do you mean?
It's getting
You're just
there.
not wired like that. Yeah. And in multiple conversations you and I have had, we are raising girls. We both have daughters, but we've never been a little girl. So we do our best to connect, but there are times where our wives will have a just immediate better connection and immediate better understanding, no matter how hard we try, because they're women and they know what it's like to be a little girl. And then the inverse for us and our sons. My wife can try and try and try and try, but my son comes up to me and I get it. Yeah, dude, I've been there. I fully understand what you're going through. So mothers, single mothers without a dad in the mix, you have to find that mentor. You have to give them an example of what right looks like. And you've got to work to cultivate it. And that might mean practices, games, books, equipment, late nights, study. Like it's work, but you're their mother. And you can give them the gift of avoiding all the stats we just shared.
Yes, you can. And you you can't be their father. That's why fathers are important. And that's why, I look at my girl. You just brought up what we both have daughters. I have two, and I
You one up
think
in me?
about yeah, I think about that a lot, right? I think about my role as a man and the examples that I'm showing them, and I truly believe that if we have these conversations more, if we get fathers involved, if we open up the dialogue and we have honest and truthful conversations, right? Not based on coercion or manipulation or what the mob thinks, but real legit conversations on how can we fix this problem of fatherlessness? How can we combat it? How can we improve it? Right? You said before we look for solutions. So I know that I'm doing my part. And the reason I know that is because when my daughters see me, they don't see fathers as something bad. They see fathers as the greatest thing, somebody who's going to help them, somebody who's going to help guide them through life, that's going to be there with them through good times, through tough times, and is also going to be there to encourage them when things are going good and push forward. And so I really feel like if to try to get women on board with seeing how important this is, to see how important a man in the life, father in the life of the children are, we need to have our daughters see and live this through us, because they're going to grow up and they're going to be the next generation of women in the world. And when the other women start saying men are bad, men are misogynists, they're egotistical, they're violent, they're criminals, they're destroying the country, they're going to say, no, you just were raised by the wrong men, right? Not my father. That's not how I was raised. And I think that's important, right? That's something that needs to be noted, needs to be aware. We need to raise strong daughters who love their fathers. Obviously, sons too, but they'll have their own problems that we're going to have to address.
They get their own video after this. That's the thing, man. Because it also shows you in this, when you're looking for your relationship, or your daughters or my daughter looking for their relationship, and they're looking for a man who's providing the things that we provided and having the discussions we had, when they know to look for that, they can weed out a lot of people who otherwise they might have missed. Like, oh, he's a good dude. Yeah, sure. I'm going to overlook this, and this, but he's a good dude outside of that. When you have a father who said, no, you don't make exceptions to anything. You have your filter, and they either make it through or they don't. There is no looking around, oh, he's just a little bit of crack he does. That's all. He's a good dad outside of that. Like, no, man. So saying little things like, oh, he gets angry sometimes and he hits me sometimes, but it's okay because he loves me. Our daughters would never tolerate that, because we've told them, like, no, this is the standard. This is the mark. So therefore, they're much less likely to end up in a situation where they're in a negative situation with that man if it were to split, and that the child is not taken care of. So let's say worst case scenario, and again, this whole conversation sucks. Worst case scenario, a dude doesn't make it in the picture, and it's your daughter and her child. Okay. You have a daughter who still knows, here's what I have to do for my child. Here's how I'll take care of this. Here's what they need. Here's how I'll bring stability. And that, again, some women are going to find themselves in that situation. And they might be listening to this now. They're like, all right, well, that's me. I'm trying to do my best. I did all these things. Keep going. Yeah. You can't go back and rewrite the past. You can't go back and be like, oh, I wish I hadn't married him or I hadn't dated him. Like, that's over. You're here. Your child's here. Do everything you can for that kid and to keep yourself as good as you can be to continue taking care of that kid. You still have a duty. And again, you'll find the role model. You'll know what to look for in the next relationship you have, whatever it is. But the child is made top priority. And I think as long as that's the focus, we can change this trend. But it's got to reach many, many, many more fucking ears than just our four. Because you and I get it, you know? So as we're doing this, it's like, dads, like, it's cool that you're listening. Thank you for all the thumbs up on the video. Go apply it. Go show your kids. Talk to your kids about these things. Have these talks. We have, again, the whole video we've already fucking recorded. Apply it. It's not enough to sit and talk and agree. Yeah, you're right, guys. We know we're right. This sucks. We know it sucks. You know, like, and this is very rarely do we go onto the topics where you see a lot of these men who are like, it's very popular what we're talking about. This is a popular one because a lot of men are just frustrated at the fact that with family law, a lot of men have been removed from their home. You know, there are a lot of situations where men don't have access to the kids the way the wife does. In this topic, which while being a hot topic, I don't think our angle on this is very hot because what we're doing is saying, hey, it's not family law. It's you. You have to make yourself involved. You have to be present. You have to ensure that you're showing up. And when you're tired after work, you still get the fuck on your feet and go outside and play catch or kick a ball around. You sit down and do the homework with them, even though you're tired. You sit and you build and you work out with them, even though you're sore. All these things play into it. You know, you don't get to be Peter Griffin saying, why aren't my kids having healthy relationships with food? Dude, they're following your example. Be the father who sets a good example on how to love a woman, on how to take care of himself, on how to love himself and be at peace in life, and how to connect with other men, how to connect with other women, and how to just basically live a life well lived. Give your children that gift, and you can only do that if you're present in the home.
Yeah, man. Well said, brother.
I'm glad we made it through this one. I don't think either of us ranted too hard on it, you know? So I think we did well.
We did, as always. I have my moments.
No, it's good though. I love watching it riff. The dogs made their appearance, so all is right in the world. Everything's working the way it's supposed to. Look, if you're listening to this, Oak and Rock Fatherhood is run by Anthony and I. We came from this from two different positions, but we're here. And the focus, again, is on the fathers. So if you're a woman and you have a hard time with that, that's your problem. Fix it. If you're a man and you're listening to this and you feel targeted, yeah, we are talking directly to you. Unfuck your situation. Your family needs you, and we can help you. There's links below to our social media. You can contact us there. You can drop a comment. But again, if you don't apply this, nothing changes. And that's what Anthony and I are looking to do, to bring change to the world. Some applicable advice. So Anthony, do you have any signing off motivation for the folks listening?
Yes, of course. No, that's what it's about, man. It's about changing the world. These things that we talk about, the topics, the conversations that we have, they literally can change the world, right? This is how it's done, one step at a time. We're definitely bringing fathers to new heights. We're helping fathers. We're supporting fathers. And we're talking about how important it is to have fathers in the home, but not just being there, but being present, being active in their child's lives, being a good man, living with value and living with high standards. So, you know, if you enjoy the content, hit the like button, subscribe. Like you said, Zac, you can find us everywhere on social media. Zac Small, Anthony McLarino. And this has been another episode of Oak and Rock Fatherhood.